Should the San Francisco 49ers trade wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk for wide receiver Tyreek Hill? Let's have some fun on today's show, and let's talk some football. You're watching the 49ers Report. My name is Chase Sr. As always, thank you so much for hopping on board, hanging out, and watching the show. Naturally, let's start off with this poll question here. If you wanted to go with one wide receiver on the Niners roster in 2025, who would it be? Type BA for Brandon Aiyuk, TH for Tyreek Hill. Let me know down in the comment section right now. A big reason why we're having this conversation, there are trade rumors swirling around the Cheetah. And this really started after the Dolphins' regular season finale, where Tyreek Hill was at his locker. The Dolphins didn't make the playoffs. He wasn't happy with how the season went, how his production was in 2024, and he said, I need to figure stuff out for myself, my career, and basically said, I have to figure out whether or not my career is going to continue with the Miami Dolphins. Then he said a few weeks later, including a classic line to one of our employees, Marshall Green, that he wants to stay in Miami and continue to play with the Dolphins. But things change quickly in professional sports. Wide receivers are always dramatic, and Tyreek Hill yesterday on Sunday into today on Monday sent multiple cryptic tweets out, which has fueled more trade buzz around his name. And so now we're back posing the question, will the Dolphins trade away Tyreek Hill? And if they do, which types of teams could be in the market for one of the most electrifying players in the National Football League over the last several years? This is really how it started. There was this tweet which Tyreek Hill quote tweeted, and it was David Fisher who said, Fins Nation, would you be open to trading Tyreek Hill? Tyreek Hill just quote tweets that with the smiley face on Sunday. And then somebody asked Jason from Over the Cap, a popular salary cap website for the National Football League, biggest draft night player trade candidate. And Jason from Over the Cap said, probably Tyreek Hill. So Tyreek Hill quote tweets that, and when he scores a touchdown, he's famous for throwing up the deuces because oftentimes he uses that speed to pull away from defenders. And so he quote tweets the answer, probably Tyreek Hill, with the deuces. And then within that same hour, he sent out another tweet, simply just throwing up the peace sign. Is that a peace sign? So long, sayonara to Miami, or what? And then today, I'm seeing a lot of 49er fans who are starting to debate this topic here because this graphic was floating around on social media. A trade proposal where the Dolphins receive Brandon Aiyuk, who's also been mentioned in trade discussions, and 2 2025 sixth-round picks from San Francisco. And then the Niners receive wide receiver Tyreek Hill. These are two wide receivers who are a lot different as far as their games. They're different in age, but both of them could be looking for a change of scenery. So if the Dolphins want to trade away Tyreek Hill and the Niners want to trade away Brandon Aiyuk, could both teams just swap wide receivers? Here's a look at what Tyreek Hill's been able to do the last 4 years. And when he entered the league with Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs, he quickly became one of the most thrilling players in football. And that production has really continued. Now, he had arguably his worst year of his career in 2024, but keep in mind that Tua Tagovailoa missed a lot of time. That impacted Tyreek Hill's production. Still in a bad year, had 81 catches, 959 yards, but the yards per catch number for a vertical threat, who's an explosive player, who's a threat to find the end zone from anywhere, yards per catch was only 11.8. He did have 6 touchdowns, 2 drops. In 2023, 2022, 2021, well over 100 catches in all of those years. The yards per catch numbers have always been very consistent because he's such an explosive playmaker. And the touchdown numbers for a player his size, not always utilized in the red zone, but because he can get vertical, he can get up and down, he can take the top off of the defense. Again, he can find pay dirt often. The drop numbers, not great. That is something that you have to accept with Tyreek Hill, but also remember he is a smaller and shorter player in stature. As for Brandon Aiyuk, he's more of that complete wide receiver. Doesn't have as much speed as Tyreek Hill. I'd say he's a better route runner than Tyreek Hill. I think his size is something that I look for in wide receivers. With some of those smaller guys, you have to do something special, right? If you don't want to be a gadget guy. For Tyreek Hill, he has that speed. I like wide receivers more like Brandon Aiyuk in the mold of that type of player where you have enough speed to get behind the defense, but you can be utilized from goal line to goal line. What I mean by that, you're not just a 20-yard line to 20-yard line player. You can be utilized anywhere, and you can find success with route running, with good hands, with solid size. And that's what Brandon Aiyuk's been able to do in his career. Obviously, to start his career, he got better and better and better, and he progressed greatly in his first 4 years. Then he got that contract extension after all of that drama last offseason, which then leaked into training camp and in the preseason. And in week 7, he suffered that gruesome knee injury. And now, given the price tag, given the injury concerns, there are concerns and there are questions as far as who Brandon Aiyuk is going to be coming off that knee injury and when he's going to come back. But then I segue to this, right? Part of this conversation, could the 49ers really trade Brandon Aiyuk away for Tyreek Hill? It's a fun idea to talk about because both wide receivers could benefit from a change of scenery. Mike McDaniel has familiarity with Brandon Aiyuk. He coached him when he was the Niners offensive coordinator, and even before that when he was an assistant under head coach Kyle Shanahan. Aiyuk is younger than Tyreek Hill, 27. Hill right now is 31. So if the Dolphins just want to get out from the Tyreek Hill contract, get rid of the player, they could get younger at that position and bring in a more complete wide receiver as compared to the vertical threat to pair Aiyuk up with Jalen Waddle. Both teams seem to want out from those wide receivers. The Niners, though, would get a receiver who they can utilize in this offense. And Tyreek Hill would offer them something very unique, something they don't have right now, and that is an elite deep threat for Brock Purdy. And then the Dolphins get that complete wide receiver if they just want to change some things up within their offense to give Mike McDaniel a new type of weapon to utilize for Tua Tagovailoa, again, alongside Jalen Waddle. Now, John Lynch from the NFL owners' meetings on Monday did say Aiyuk is going to be with us in 2025. There's, of course, that roster bonus that kicks in and is guaranteed if Aiyuk is on the team on April 1st. And then that roster bonus is guaranteed for 2026 as well if he's on the team April 1st. Adam Schefter reported this on Sunday that the Niners owe wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk that roster bonus, if he's on the team on Tuesday. Once the Niners pay that bonus, any trade talks for Aiyuk would be off, and he would be expected to spend the 2025 season in San Francisco. So Tuesday looms as Aiyuk's unofficial trade deadline, and no deal is currently expected by then. Now, Schefter, within his report on ESPN, did say, barring a last-minute change. Well, that last-minute change would have to happen quickly as we're recording this show on the final day of March. Fun idea to talk about, unlikely, but the skill set and the speed of Tyreek Hill would certainly be intriguing for head coach Kyle Shanahan. More to get to here on the program, but first, if you want a Niners draft hat, you can get yours today in black, in white at chatsports.com/49draft hats. These are the hats that the Niners draftees for the 2025 draft will be wearing. I haven't loved them in the past. I really like them this year. We were having a big debate in the office the other day. Do you like them? Do you not? Some people like them. Some people don't. I think they're very fresh. You can see for yourself thanks to our friends at Fanatics at chatsports.com/49draft hats. I'll put that link down below so that you can look fresh. Rocking a new lid down in the show notes and attached to the pinned comment of today's show. All right, from the NFL owners' meetings as well. John Lynch spoke. Some head coaches spoke. Kyle Shanahan still has to speak. Jim Harbaugh, coach of the Chargers, obviously former Niners coach and former Michigan coach, backed Jake Moody. Jake Moody was his kicker a couple of years ago when Harbaugh was the head coach at Michigan. This was before Michigan went on to win the national championship during the 2023 season. Here's what Harbaugh had to say about Moody. What do I know of Jake Moody? He's just a very, very steady, confident player who's confident in his ability. I've seen him miss a few and then come back and make 14, 17 straight. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I would think that it's going to repeat itself. Obviously, Harbaugh is aware that Moody last year really, really struggled, and his seat is scorching hot going into the 2025 season, considering how much he struggled in 2024. And it's hard to justify. I can't justify the Niners using a third-round pick on a kicker. They had other needs on the roster. You can get really quality kickers as UDFAs. Kicking is such a mentally fickle position where if kickers who are even dominant miss a few, sometimes their confidence goes down the drain. With Moody, in his first year, there was some good, there was some bad. He missed that kick against Cleveland, which would have won the game for San Francisco. He had the extra point blocked against Kansas City in the Super Bowl. A lot of people forget that in that Super Bowl, he drilled 2 kicks of 50-plus yards. In that rookie season, 21 of 25, not bad. 4 of 6 from 40 to 49 yards, just okay. 2 of 3 on 50-plus, you'll take that. 60 of 61 on extra points, very solid. But only good for a field goal percentage of 84%. You were expecting him to get better in 2024. Started the year off well, and then he injured his ankle thanks to a blown special teams coverage on a kickoff. Missed some time, came back, and he was absolutely dreadful. On the year, 24-34. From 40 of 49, 6 of 11. Just not good enough. On kicks of 50-plus yards, 4 of 9. So when you're batting around 50%, 40 to 49, 50-plus, and you're costing your team a lot of points, you're costing your team games, it becomes a problem. And obviously that Niners red zone offense not as good this past year as compared to 2023 when they were so efficient. And so the extra point numbers were almost cut in half, 32 at 33, but the field goal percentage goes down to 70.6%. Harbaugh believes that he can bounce back. He's seen it before. It has to happen for San Francisco. And at the very least, I continue to say this, Niners need to bring in some kicking competition with Jake Moody in training camp and in the preseason to push him, to put some pressure on him, because hopefully that can bring the best out of Jake Moody. Has a strong leg. He's hit some clutch kicks. Just needs to be better, bottom line. So will Jake Moody be on the Niners roster week 1? Type on, type off. Where you at?